Питання звучить так. На якій сильній стороні ми можемо розбудувати країну?
At the risk of being a bit of a contrarian, I'd like to answer something which is none of the above. And I think the biggest strength of Ukraine when it comes to reforming its country and reforming its economy and finally breaking decisively with the Soviet past is the courage of its people. That's the core strength of the country, and that is what you build a country on, I think. I am impressed every day. I'm impressed by the fact that people were on the Maidan. The colleagues in Brussels probably have never seen a demonstration of people saying we want to be European to the point of facing bullets. I think it's the only country where that has ever taken place. And I think this courage that has been demonstrated by the Ukrainian people at that time needs to lives on, and is what the country will be built on. Now, why am I saying this? I think we are faced here with an extraordinarily difficult situation because not only the Soviet past, not only the situation was very different from the rest of Eastern Europe when the wall came down, but also on this Soviet past, we have patiently built a system that favors the vested interests over the past 25 years. We have built a system where transparency does not exist. We have built a system where it's too easy to steal the money and it's too difficult to catch the thieves. Right? And that's what we are up against. So it's much more difficult than what other guys found in 1991 in Poland, in the Baltic countries, and so on and so forth. So people are saying Ukraine is in a difficult situation. I beg to differ. When I compare maybe with Eastern Europe, that may be the case. When I compare with the former Soviet Union, there's only one other country in the CIS that has managed to break out of the Soviet mold, and that's Georgia. So by those standards, I think Ukraine is doing pretty well, in fact. And when I look at these countries and when I look at Ukraine, we talk about populism and we talk about elections. My take on it is, of course, it's very important. I take heart to the fact that only 8% of the people have said we need a strong leader. And that's really good because historically, you have one strong leader per century and he's in power for 10 years, which means that 90% of the time you don't have one. So we need to learn to live in the 90% of the time when we don't have a strong leader who's saving the country, right? Because that's our working environment. But democracy is not just about the elections. It's about, again, the courage of the people. Not just to have the independence, but also to exercise it. There are neighboring countries where I work, where you see, for example, a central bank governor having all the independence that they need, but not exercising it. And letting oligarchs, oligarch is not just a Ukrainian species, so letting oligarchs take control of the banking system. Thank God in Ukraine, we've had, over the past 2 years, a courageous team at the central bank who has cleaned the banking system, largely. There's still work to be done, but there's been a great work done. And we have had courageous decisions made by courageous people. Now, to move forward, to go to the decisive point is very difficult, because it means the big change I see that is needed in the mentality, and it links to the breaking the link between the politicians and the oligarchs, is to understand the value of independence. Today, there's a too large number of people, including in the political leadership of the country, that understand independence as, well, that guy there, either I control him, or if I don't, someone else will, and will use him against me. There is no third position. There's the fact that the regulator, a prosecutor, a judge can be independent is outside of the mental space of many of our leaders in this country. And that is the one thing, if I could convince the leaders in this country of one thing, that is the one thing I would try to convince them of, is that it is actually in everybody's interest to have independent institutions. And democracy is not just about winning the elections, about being a populist or fighting against the populists, but is also about building an institution for the next generation that is going to make sure that everyone in the long term benefits. So I vote for the courage of the Ukrainian people.
So, can I clarify this? your answer. So does it mean there is answer B? It's values and character of people, right?
We support what Francis said. I think the ultimate test of a democracy is the ability of a leader to give up control, and I think it works at all levels of the administration, of all levels of politics, and so I very much underline that point. It's very hard to really get inside this idea of independence, and it's absolutely crucial. I see it in so many countries, how essential that is to make the country work.
Thank you. Давайте подивимося результати цього голосування. Що у нас?
Так, Маліж, на жаль, українці в аудиторії, напевно, не так добре ставляться до нас, як до нації, тому варіант цінності та культура людей, так само, як і географічне положення, набрали лише по 7%, водночас 43% набрав освітній потенціал.
Hello, everybody. Olga Zarichenska, Ukrainian Catholic University. So I was very happy to see that education is a big potential for Ukraine. And as a part of education, of course, I'm very happy to hear that. So, and my question is really, how do you see this if most of the universities in Ukraine are also very corrupted, and the quality of education is also a big question mark? Thank you.
So I think universities are about a lot of things. They are about education. It's also about openness and ideas and so on. I just want to one point is that to get people to educate themselves and make the investments in time and money and so on, the returns to those investments matter. And we know that there's a very strong link between the returns to education and the institution. So when you're building all these institutions we've been talking about, you're also encouraging people to make investments in educating themselves. So to me, that's why I'm very hopeful about the future of human capital and education in this country.
One remark, because it is important to change all country, because if you only have good education, for instance, and non-functioning institutions corrupted and so on, then you will have young educated people who will leave the country. And this is very important. And it happened, again, it is not theory. In Ireland, it happened in 70s, 60s, 70s, but then when in Ireland reforms were done and country grew up and investment came, then many of those people who left before returned, and Ireland even started to attract people from Central Europe, for instance. In Slovakia, it was the same in 90s when people left, educated people. And then after reforms, when economy was growing, new investment, new possibilities, those people returned. Which means it is very important not only to educate them and to have them, that also create conditions for staying here and developing Ukraine.
One place, so generally as an American, I come to Europe and tell the Europeans how wonderful they are and how they're better than we are and so on. But the one place where I would say that the United States does considerably better than Europe is in the university system. And so in the basic way that the United States works here is that the university system is decentralized. There is no federal national university system at all. The best universities are all at the level of the states. That is what you would call the oblasts. And people are proud of that. It means that each region has something that they're very proud of. And the second pillar of our university system, as you at UKU know very well, is private. So a good university system is something which I think has to be decentralized and private. Now, one thing which is really striking about Ukrainian education, one place where you have exported excellence in the last 2 years has been in journalism. I would go so far as to say that the experience of the Maidan and of the war in the East is one which has demonstrated how important traditional investigative fact-checking journalism is. That's a lesson from Ukraine which can be exported to the West, and I think in fact should be exported to the West. And journalism over the long term is a very important part of the decorruption process that you're describing, as you know very well. And since this is a long-term investment, I would say long-term investment in traditional fact-checking, investigative journalism is something that Americans and Europeans and Ukrainians should all be thinking about.